And we are back. And we just finished 2022's Persuasion, rated PG-13 with a runtime of 1 hour and 47 minutes. This is currently streaming on Netflix and is probably the worst, most cringiest of the Austen adaptations ever made, bar none. This is the story of Anne Elliot, played by Dakota Johnson, who 8 years prior was madly in love with Frederick Wentworth, a young man of no means who also desperately loved her back. And in this incantation is played by Cosmo Jarvis. And she is persuaded by her good family friend and almost second mother, the Lady Russell, to not marry Wentworth because he didn't have money. He wasn't of, I guess, a noble birth. Yes, et cetera, et cetera. So she listens to Lady Russell, decides not to marry Wentworth, and then in this version becomes a sad alcoholic.
Basically what happened in this movie is the producers saw Fleabag.
Yes, which is also streaming on Netflix, which you should absolutely watch.
Fleabag's Amazon Prime.
Oh, sorry. Was it on Prime? I thought it was on Netflix. No, it's on Prime. You're right.
They saw Fleabag and were like, wait a minute. This is good. What if we made our own version of Fleabag? I don't feel like writing a story. Well, let's just take something from Jane Austen. It's public domain. And this is what we got. With lots of looks at the camera, just
breaking the
like overflowing glasses of wine, being drunk or just chugged out of the bottle. Allusions to, what was that lady's name? The one who persuaded her not to marry
Lady Russell.
Lady
Russell.
Allusions to Lady Russell, basically just going on European gangbang tours.
That was hilarious. Oh my gosh.
She's like planning her next one in church.
I mean, my favorite scene in this atrocity was when she was trying to go to the bathroom. And then we came up with a whole different story.
Which would have made the film so much better.
So much better. But we'll leave that out for now because we don't want other people stealing our ideas.
Yeah.
You got to pay us for that.
When we make our
own Jane Austen
Three Stooges
mashup. I'm so pissed off.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll give them a little backstory. You love Jane Austen.
I love Jane Austen, and I especially love Persuasion. Persuasion is my favorite of the Austen novels, and up to this point, I believed, and I still actually know, I still believe 1995's version with Ciarán Hinds and Amanda Root is the definitive version of this. I wasn't a big fan of the 2007 one with Sally Hawkins, but I would rather watch that any day of the week than have to sit through this again. This is actually my second viewing. It was even worse the second time around. I'm speechless. I am absolutely and utterly speechless about this. And it's not even the fact that, listen, I'm not one of these people that's such a purist. You know what? I love Clueless. I think it's great.
Is Clueless Persuasion, or is that
no? Clueless is Emma. Clueless is great. I think it's a great adaptation of that. This, I don't even know what to say. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Somebody saw Fleabag and was like, oh, you know what's really big right now? That Bridgerton show. Let's do something like that.
Yeah.
And although I don't know if they break the fourth wall in that, but it's like, let's do that and mash it up with Fleabag, because Fleabag's so fun and cool and interesting.
Yeah. And it was just so blatant. Like,
oh my God. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
She was completely like aping
Phoebe Waller-Bridger's
mannerisms and
everything.
I mean,
everything.
Even the hair, like,
yeah. I was just like, what?
It was such a ripoff.
And it's funny because at one point I turned to you, like there was there was the scene where she's at her sister Mary's house and her hair's down at the breakfast table. Her sister always has
when she's hung over.
Right. Yeah. But her sister's always done up. All of the sisters, right? Even the Musgrove sisters, Louisa and Henrietta. Mary, her younger sister, the one who sort of reminds me of Florence Pugh. Mm-hmm. And then the older sister, Elizabeth, they're always done up. And yet Anne looks like she just came out of the stable after having a romp in there. And it's like, no woman of good breeding is ever seen in public unless she's got her hair up. She's certainly not wearing her bedclothes to the breakfast table. She's in attire.
Yeah.
I just.
Well, she was a rebel. Yeah, she's just independent and rebellious.
Was she though? Because
not really. No.
I mean, what has she been doing for the last 8 years? Crying over this love loss.
And the other thing you mentioned was like the whole gist of Persuasion was that you never know like the true feelings because like this is Victorian 1800s England.
Yeah,
everybody
England
is so goddamn repressed. I mean,
yeah,
like their shirts are buttoned up to the point where they can't even like look down anymore, and nobody's allowed to display real, genuine emotions.
No,
fun is looked down upon.
Right.
Or,
yeah, towards the end when she runs after him.
No, well, not even at the end.
Like, they're sucking face, and I'm like, that wouldn't have happened.
But not even at the end. It was like there was no ambiguity. Yeah, they both still loved each other.
Right.
And it was
and his face.
Oh, God.
Jesus. I mean, could he be any more obvious? And could she be more of an idiot that she didn't realize that he was still in love with her? I mean, he looked at her like with pain and longing.
That guy's face. I could, every time they showed his face, I just kept laughing because he looked so damn stupid.
Yeah.
He looked like he was just like a chimpanzee trying to figure out how a TV worked. It was just crazy how just mindless he looked throughout most of the scenes.
I mean, to me, I felt like he looked like he was constipated. Like,
I think maybe they were like, maybe he got into his head like, oh, well, this is Victorian England. We're supposed to be repressed. And somehow he converted repressed into, I'm like really holding in this dump I got to take. And I don't understand why. Like, the look of just not understanding anything on his face was just...
Yes, he was like 1800s Tucker Carlson. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
He just did not... his you could see the smoke coming out his ears because the engine inside his head just wasn't working proper. The hamster is dead at the wheel.
The scene where she's going to take a dump and she overhears the conversation. I was like, this never happened.
You couldn't have done that like what like
this never happened.
Was that necessary? She could have just been walking and it's just like, no, I'm going to take a crap. And it wasn't even like she like really walked that far into the woods. She walked along the path that everybody was taking.
Right.
Didn't walk off the path. She just was like, oh, there's a tree along this path. I'm just going to lean against it and drop my drawers and take a dump. Not even noticing that the man that she's like been pining for is like maybe 15 feet away from her.
Not even. I think he was closer than that.
At the shoreline talking with Louisa. Just really...
And then the other
everybody was a moron in this.
The other scene, okay, so the most egregious scene, obviously, to me, I mean, the first time I viewed it, I literally lost my shit, was when she gets the letter, because the letter is edited.
Yeah.
And it is not the letter that Frederick wrote to Anne. And I don't understand why they changed the letter. The letter was, to me, like the highlight of that book. I mean, the book is great. The story is great. It's about a woman who decides to listen to this woman who's sort of like a second mother to her, who gives her advice, and she regrets it. She regrets it for 8 years that she did this, but she never throws it in Lady Russell's face because of the social etiquette. She never would have, they never had that conversation.
Yeah.
None of that happened. Lady Russell never felt bad about advising Anne to do what she did. She didn't.
Yeah, because she was a snob. They were all
right,
snobs.
Exactly. And in this one, she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Are you still mad at me? Like, no, you don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Even though Frederick is now a wealthy seaman, you don't even give a shit because he's new money. He's not old money.
Yeah.
And you're a snob and you don't give a shit about new money.
It was like what the father was saying.
Right,
like,
right.
Who earns their title? That's
yes, that was given by God. Yeah. In this version, the only person that I thought was I thought Richard E. Grant as the father was great as Walter Elliot. I thought he was great. I actually liked Henry Golden as the younger Mr. Elliot. However, he never reveals to Anne that he's going to make a play for Mrs. Clay so that Mrs. Clay and his uncle don't hook up and produce a male heir and then take away his inheritance. That never happens. And also, why would he tell Anne after he then professes his love for her? What?
And then
what?
You said that, and they never actually get married in the
no, not in the original.
Which kind of makes sense because why?
In the other version of it,
why would he marry her? It's like all you want to do is throw a monkey wrench in the guy's plan,
right?
Just sleep with her. You don't have to marry her.
Exactly.
Or just get her in a weird compromising position or
right.
Or do
and then hold that over her.
Because what's to prevent the old guy from just being like, well, I just found this prostitute over here and she's going to have my heir.
Right.
He could have just done that. Yeah.
Yeah. So none of that happened. And then I have to admit, she was a little over the top, but I also liked Mary, the younger sister. She was just gave no fucks about anything or anyone that wasn't her.
Is that how it was?
And that's basically the character. She just does not care. She's constantly whining and complaining. Oh, I'm dying. And no one pays attention to me. Me. Look at me. Pay attention to me. That's her younger sister.
What about the older sister?
The older sister is actually, she's very mean. She wasn't that mean here. Like, she's supposed to be super mean. And also, I think, resentful because originally the cousin Elliot, played by the Henry Golden character, or by Henry Golden in this, he was supposed to marry Elizabeth. But that didn't happen because he ran off with the American and married her. So I think she was always resentful of that, Elizabeth, so that when the cousin Mr. Elliot comes back into their lives, she thinks that they're going to pick up where they left off. There's that scene where he comes to the house. They tell Anne to go open the door.
Yeah.
And he turns around and he sees her. And he's like literally flirting with her, which also would not happen in 1800s Austen land. And then the sister comes in and she's like, what's going on? Because she doesn't understand. And then like Anne is telling her, oh, honey, don't worry about it. He's just flirting with me because he's preparing or he's practicing on me so that, he knows what to say to you or something like that. Also, not in the book.
Yeah, well, I mean, in those cases, they just took liberty. The thing that I found just irritating was the complete fact that it was ripping off Fleabag. And
yeah, completely.
And they were trying to make, they were just trying to make her like sloppy. Oh, I'm so out of it, I'm just gonna drown myself in alcohol.
Yeah.
And okay, you want to do that, set it in modern times.
Exactly. So this would have been my notes. Lose the whole Austen thing. Just have it be a a film about second chances.
Yeah.
Or you could even say loosely based on Jane Austen's Persuasion.
Yeah. Like freaking Clueless.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. You want a kind of just
a Fleabag-ish
version of Austen.
Set it in
modern times.
Today's day and age, because it's unless this was supposed to be some sort of like slapstick comedy. There's no reason. There's no
drama romance in IMDb.
But if you're not going to adhere, if it's a drama and you're not going to adhere to the style of the times that you're basing this whole period piece around,
then it's a comedy. Yeah,
you may as well just make it a comedy. If it's a comedy, you could have her getting wasted. Mm-hmm. You could have her falling ass backwards down a hill or something like that. That would make sense,
right?
Because it's just like, oh, we're taking the piss out of all the prim and proper
shit,
stuff that you see in these Austen Merchant Ivory type movies,
right?
But to just like, okay, we're just going to place it there, and we're just going to borrow a couple of modern tropes and chuck them in there. It's like, well, now you're just taking me out of the whole thing,
right?
I mean, I don't know. It didn't work. You should have just made it.
In modern
Persuasion in modern times.
Right,
Exactly. And then you could have had all that, the looking at the camera. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have even done that, because it's, seriously, Fleabag was just like, what, 5 or 6 years ago that it came out? It's too soon to be just blatantly ripping it off. Yeah. It's just sad when you rip something off that hard.
And so obviously, right?
And so obvious. It's just.
So I also want to mention that we saw this with the kids, and the kids were disappointed that she
never said I'm determined.
Yes, the scene at the seaside where Louisa has her accident wasn't as they remembered from the 95 version.
Probably the only thing better about the scene was the smack Louisa's head makes when it hits the concrete.
I think I did see you laugh.
Yeah. It's still just ridiculous. I mean,
I think G laughed too, wasn't she? Like, oh my gosh,
hysterics.
Yeah, she was like, "What a dumbass!
What a dumbass!" Yeah. Seriously, it's just. And this one was probably she was probably even dumber in this version than she was in the 95 version, because Wentworth. That's his name?
Yeah.
Wentworth wasn't even near her when she jumps off.
No. He had completely
She's just like, I'm doing it again. He's like, no, you're not. And then she does it anyway. And you just hear like splat.
Crack.
Yeah, like a watermelon hitting the ground. Dumbass.
Yeah. So I am extremely, extremely disappointed, to the point where, I mean.
Well, I mean, this got to be hard because you are a real fan of this.
Yeah, and I
am not nowhere near as well versed as you are in when it comes to Austen.
I literally own like 4 versions of this book. 4 of the same book. I own 4 versions of this book. I have 3 DVDs of the one from 71, I think, that you bought me. I have the one from 1995 or 97, whenever the hell it came out. And I have the 2007 one. I certainly will not be adding this to my collection.
You are a fan.
Yes.
So this version must be especially painful for you.
Hard pass.
Yeah.
Hard pass.
What would you give it?
I am going to give this a 2.
Oh, wow. I was going to give it a 4 just because.
Brutal. This was brutal to watch. This was brutal to watch. When I listen, if I'm Mystery Science Theatering a film but laughing like we did with Voyage of the Rock Aliens, like, that was fun. It was stupid. It was fun. It was a throwback to happier days. This, you're taking, listen, again, I completely understand. Film is a different medium. You're taking a pre-existing novel. You know what? As a teller of stories, do it right. Like, if you want to have modern day elements in this story, then do it in modern day. Don't do it in the time of Austen, because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
People didn't act this way.
Unless, like I said, unless you were making this like just a broad comedy.
Right. But I don't think that was the intention. I think they thought they were being clever.
This was not intended to be a comedy at all.
No, I don't think so either.
Like I said, they were trying to be clever, but it was a romantic drama.
Right. Because, I mean, the source material, the whole idea of the story is that this young woman who had just a few years ago lost her mother, who felt very alone, falls in love, but she's from an upper class family. She falls in love with this common boy. They have this wild, mad, passionate romance. It's probably her first love. He's probably her first love. She's probably his first love. They really loved each other. But she is persuaded by this woman who is her, almost like her second mother, to give up this person. And she does so because...
For superficial reasons.
But I don't think in that moment she understood the gravity of the decision. And now, 8 years later, she's still single, which is a big deal at that point, because in that time, society expected you to be married by a certain age. Yeah. Otherwise, you're now an old maid. So by the time Frederick re-enters her life, she is now a woman in her late 20s. That's like the death sentence.
Yeah, you're an old bag.
You're just considered like useless at that point, right? So she then has this opportunity to rekindle this romance, but because she is a woman of the time, from a good family, with good morals and adherence to social etiquette and values, she's not going to throw herself at this man. I think in the middle of this particular film is that scene on the beach where they're basically telling each other how they feel. I'm like, this never would have happened in Austen's time.
Yeah.
You don't know that until the end of the novel. What is the point of having like all this tension and what ifs if you're just going to resolve it in the middle of the story? It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
So to do sort of such a half-assed job of such a wonderful, beautiful property really hurts my heart. And the fact that they took that letter that I actually own a bracelet with the letter on it. Got it off Etsy. I'm going to put the link in the detail in the blurb for this thing because I want to give that person a shout out. I can't remember. I bought it years and years ago. It's one of my favorite pieces of jewelry, so much so that I barely wear it because I'm afraid of losing it. And let me tell you something. Every once in a while, I look up that letter and I read it because it is the most beautiful thing. And in that moment is when Anne realizes, oh my God, Wentworth still loves me. She didn't know prior to this.
Yeah.
She had no clue. There was no talk of like, let's be friends. There was none of that. None of that. And what was that line? Now we're worse than exes. We're friends.
Exes. We're friends.
Listen. I am rendered speechless when I go over this film in my mind. Honestly, if this is what you wanted to do, you make Dakota Johnson a girl who was so driven by ambition. She leaves her high school sweetheart behind. She goes off into the world, goes to college, becomes a big deal in whatever field she's in, works to the point where she has no social life. She has a lot of pretty friends. She has a lot of superficial shit, but she's empty because she doesn't have that human connection. Listen, nobody wants to be an island unto themselves. Everybody wants to make that connection, to find that person, their person, the person that they're going to share the rest of their life with, somebody that's going to love them in spite of all of their failings and all their faults, and make them feel wonderful like 1,000 suns. That's not the story here. What they should have done was made that story. This is a story about second chances, having the opportunity to reconnect with that person that you lost for whatever reason. And in the story of Persuasion, again, as a young girl, Anne lets herself be persuaded to give up Frederick because he didn't adhere to the social norms of the time.
For like what seemed like practical reasons.
Yes, exactly. Because even
told
Lady
to her
Russell,
were practical reasons.
Even Lady Russell says marriage is transactional.
Yeah.
Marriage is transactional. That's absolutely true, especially in Austen's England.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to do this piece and then to listen, I get it. You want to have a young, fresh audience. Then fucking do it in 2022. There's no reason to do this as a period piece. Listen, I like period pieces and pretty frocks and great scenery as much as the next person, but you absolutely destroy the story by adding these other elements. Nobody's looking at the camera in these stories.
Yeah, and a big part of it is just the fact that everybody was so repressed.
Yes.
There wasn't women didn't blow off steam by guzzling giant pints of wine.
Yes.
Bringing up the bottle to their room so they could just like wallow in a bathtub and get shit-faced.
Yeah. And what was the other thing when the sister says, "How would you dance to Beethoven?" And she goes, "In my room with a bottle of red." Nobody in Austen's time would have said that. Absolutely. Not even the fucking maid would have said that.
Yeah.
Holy cow. The writing, listen, do this in modern times. There is a great story there, a universal story, a story about second chances and missed opportunities. You do it right. Jesus. I mean, you have Austen's template, right? Just do it in modern times. And even if you wanted to steal the whole fucking idea of Fleabag, you can do it, but do it in modern times.
Like you mentioned, I mean, I've never even seen the show. I've only basically heard its name, but you said that they were probably trying to like ape some of that Bridgerton.
Yes, because I think that's done really well for Netflix.
Yeah, that's done very well. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen the program, but do they speak using like modern terms?
I don't know. I don't watch it either. There's not enough like gratuitous violence in it for me. I mean, but it's funny because in certain times, like especially when you're away from the house with the children, I'll watch like stupid love stories all day long. I'll watch the shit out of the Hallmark Channel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
you don't even wait for me to leave to watch the whole. I've seen enough of. My ex-husband's a douchebag, but the chef, the sous chef that I work with at the restaurant, he's kind of handsome, or the rugged the rugged fireman, or
the park ranger,
the veterinarian. You know, oh look at me hold this puppy against my abs. You know.
I don't think Hallmark movies are like that, though. They should be. Like, make it a little spicy. I don't know. Whatever. But still.
The only way to cure these poor animals is to rub them against my abs.
But, yeah.
Sensitive.
Yeah, no, I've never watched Bridgerton. But, I mean, I probably should. I mean, I love period pieces and stuff like that. That totally speaks to me. But I have to be in the mood for it. Like right now, I can only devote my time to only murders in the building right now.
But anyway, that's I'm guessing that was probably a reason why they just didn't do the whole set it in modern times thing, and
it probably would have been cheaper.
It absolutely would have been cheaper.
Yeah, I mean I'm sure they had the Bridgerton sets, but still.
I mean, you didn't like this movie, but they still had the costumes and the old buildings and all that stuff.
Yeah, and even. None of that could save it. None of it.
No, because it was just such a terrible ripoff of Fleabag.
Of Fleabag.
But the thing that was funny is a ripoff of Fleabag, but it lacked any of the ability to go for that raunchy humor that
Fleabag was
made
great.
Fleabag just fantastic to watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was rated PG.
Yeah.
Like, not even PG-13.
No, it's PG. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
It's like, what?
Why even do that? Yeah. Like, just make it modern day. Make her a total fucking wreck. Like a functioning wreck, right? Like, in her professional life, she's all business and whatever. But when she goes bottle wine, sitting in a bathtub, crying because she let this guy go.
Yeah. And have her aunt be a total bitch who recommended she dump this dude.
Yeah.
It's honestly, the story is written.
Yeah.
The story is written.
Yeah.
You could set that in any age.
Didn't even have to be like you want to do like period, do it in the fucking 60s. You know what I mean? Like, do it in the 80s. Somebody's telling their kid about, oh, do you know how I met dad? This is how I met dad. Blah. Yeah. You know? God.
Well,
I'm so pissed off.
All right, so you gave it 2?
I gave it 2.
I gave it a 4 because I'm not that entrenched in the world of Austen. I could definitely see how you would give it a 2, though.
It's shite.
Yeah.
It's shite.
All right.
Avoid this at all costs. If you have Amazon Prime, shout out to Phoebe Waller-Bridges. Go see Fleabag.
Watch Fleabag.
It's only 2 seasons. The seasons are short. What are they, like? I don't even remember how many episodes.
6 or 8 episodes.
Yeah, it's not a lot. It's not a lot. We blew through it. Dirty. Dirty. She's filthy, but we love
fun,
it.
Dirty humor.
Dirty. Yeah. Don't watch that with kids, obviously, please. I mean, you can. I mean, we didn't. Like, we have a little bit of.
First episode, she's getting like it's not even like a minute in. She's getting nailed up the butt.
This is
while like looking at the camera, you know.
Gosh, she was so great in that.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think she's developing something else for them. I think I read. Hopefully nothing to do with Fleabag. Just something different.
I mean, she seems to be I think she's going to be in the next Indiana Jones movie.
Yes, I read that. I read that. Good for her. Don't write anymore. I don't know. Phoebe, just write what you know. Don't stay away from like those No Time to Dies.
Oh, was she involved in that?
She was one of the names in the screen.
Okay. Well, I won't hold that against her. I think that well, we talked about that already.
What?
That the seeds for No Time to Die being such crap were set in the previous movies with that whole him falling in love with the girl whose father he killed.
That's the thing that makes you mad.
Yeah, it's just so stupid, and like it's like, oh, I'm gonna go on this goddamn rant now. Why did he love her so much? There was like nothing.
She had no personality.
There was
nothing.
no chemistry at all. It was just like, yeah, okay.
A question for you, not to backtrack, but did you feel that there was any chemistry between Anne and Frederick in this?
No, because I am not kidding. I don't know. I could barely tell Frederick was an actual human being. He could have, for all I know, that guy was just like some sort of shaved ape that they put in a costume, because he looked like he did not know what was going on in any of the scenes he was in. It was like, okay, Frederick to set, and they would open a door, and he was sitting in like a room where they were just filling it with gas, and he just had no idea what the hell was going on. I don't know if he was stoned. If prior to shooting he had a severe head trauma. He just looked glassy-eyed, like you remember Brock Lesnar after the Shooting Stars press at WrestleMania?
Yes.
He looked like that. He looked like something bad happened to him, and they're like, we'll just cover the bruise with a bit of poofy hair. He just looked, I don't know, just oblivious. And I just didn't understand. Yeah, I didn't feel the chemistry there. Like,
no,
it was
right?
just like, yeah, there was no passion, nothing. He was just like, and his outfit didn't help either. I mean, maybe he was really uncomfortable in that period piece clothing.
I don't know,
because seriously, everybody's got like the stuffed shirt collar all the way up. He really looked like, I don't know. It was like he was wearing a neck brace the whole time.
Yeah.
He just looked so dumb. I don't. Maybe he's better in more modern things. I don't want to.
I don't even know where
I don't
I've
want to
seen him
slam
in.
this actor. Maybe he's done some good stuff, but in this, seriously, he looked just completely lost. And I don't know how I'm supposed to believe that they have this sort of timeless love when 90% of the time he is just, the expression on his face is just without any semblance of intelligence at all. He's like a vegetable, like a very dim-witted dog, just staring at a TV.
Yeah, I don't know what to say here. This should have been done in the present. This absolutely should have been done in the present.
We're retreading ground here, so let's just wrap this one up.
Let's just wrap this up. Again, skip. Netflix's Persuasion from 2022. Go to Prime and go watch Fleabag. You won't be disappointed. Obviously, don't watch it with children, but if you want to, I guess you can, but it's really not for children.
Absolutely not for children. Don't watch it with your kids.
I mean, if they're teenagers, I guess they could enjoy it. I don't know.
I guess. I don't know.
We did not watch with the kids. There's some very naughty things in it. Very, very naughty.
First minute, nailed up the butt. All right.
That's it from us, and hopefully we'll be back with a better movie next week. But this wasn't it.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.